eventually I feel like I'm going to get crap from, frankly, somebody that doesn't know any better for talking about the diet stuff that I talk about and not doing personally, I guess, in the forefront what I tell other people to do. And it's a reasonable criticism until you realize that I've been doing this for myself for more than 11 years now, and a lot of people are bouncing between people with like a head on their shoulders, people like Jordan Syatt and Ben Carpenter and James Smith and a ton of others. Don't get me wrong. Versus people who are frankly kind of dumb, like Dave Asprey, and like he's the guy that made bulletproof coffee, wanting you to put your stick of butter in your coffee, and if you're gonna make coffee, like make it taste halfway decent. When I lived in Chicago, I think they sent me some coffee and like their MCT oils and stuff like that. And I was like, okay, cool, free coffee. I'm a resident, fine. And it was gross. Like, I'm not a big coffee drinker, but if it's good coffee, I can appreciate and will enjoy good coffee. This was not good coffee. Um, and God, there's so many people like trying to scare you away from particular foods, like Paul Saladino and Gary Brecka and those kinds of people who are like Saladino like went to medical school, sure, and got a residency in psychiatry. And you talk to anybody who's gone through medical school and then residency, and they should tell you that they learned 100x during residency compared to medical school. And sure, it builds on everything, but I and when Saladino makes the argument that yes, he went to medical school, he was taught how to read these papers. He's right, right? I don't think his general approach and understanding is overwhelmingly incorrect. I think the way that he shares knowledge is for a particular purpose that is not just global helping people, right? And I make this argument all the time with the carnivore style folks, and I compare Jordan Peterson to Mikhaila Peterson all the time, right? And there's some I think Mikhaila had rheumatoid arthritis really bad, and then she started eating, just kind of like trying to just meat, and I think maybe it's just like just meat and broccoli for her, and a lot of her stuff started getting better, and then her dad did it and reaped a hell of a lot of benefits from it. And I don't want to discount how powerful that is for them. There's a lot of really interesting stuff on keto and carnivore style diets with regards to treatment resistant like schizophrenia, schizoaffective disorder, inborn errors of metabolism. That's kind of a requirement so you don't die. But the way they go about talking about these diets is different, and I think it sounds like Mikhaila's heart is in the right place. She is very much a proponent of this diet much more globally than is Jordan, because when Jordan talks about he eats beef and he has water, and that is the entirety of his diet, and he talks about all these benefits that he's had, and still understanding that this is insane for most people, and I think it is. And I think that's the appropriate way to go about it. I think people should know that, hey, these could potentially be options, but for the overwhelming majority of humanity, they're insane. But if you are one of those people, that is, the almost infinitesimal minority, maybe this will be helpful. And part of the problem with the internet is most people think that they're special, and they're not. And going back to what I was talking about at first, the do as I say, not as I do. I've been doing this for 11 years. I am no longer what I would consider a beginner. I am, after more than a decade of paying reasonably close attention, I am intermediate. I'm not advanced. I don't understand exactly what I must do and have the, I guess, mental capacity to carry it all out to get from, let's say I'm sitting at 14% body fat right now to, getting to 8 over the course of the next 12 weeks. I don't know enough about myself to do that. And to be completely honest, I don't have the money to hire a coach for that, nor kind of do I want to, because I'm just focusing on, healing my leg at the moment. But what brought me to this was that I'm actively tracking all of my calories, right? I'm like putting in all the calories I've had so far today. It's 10:15 almost. I forgot how to spell sugar for a minute. Because the oatmeal I have in the morning is lower sugar, so that helps distinguish it. But I tell people that you don't have to count calories to lose weight, and I firmly believe that, especially for most people who are kind of venturing into the nutritional scene, right? Because a lot of people don't understand calorie balance and calorie density and like thermic effect of food. And people that I've seen in clinic for years is like, yeah, I gained some weight, I gotta get back to the gym. It's like, yeah, you're gonna get a lot of benefits from exercising that have nothing to do with weight loss. And even if you start at, a certain weight and you start exercising and you don't lose any of that weight, like excess weight, you still get benefits from that. And like a lot of them, they are not the same benefits that you would get from losing the weight. I guess some of them are. You increase your capacity to do things, which is nice. You could either do that by, let's say, you're of a particular size and you start exercising and you only get stronger, right? Okay, great. Now let's say you are of a particular size and you focus more on your diet and you only lose weight. Okay, great. It's like taking off, like say you lose 40 pounds, it's like taking off a 40-pound vest. And it happens gradually, of course, and not all at once. But I have a 40-pound vest that I used to walk in all the time, and I would put it on like, holy crap, this is what it feels like to be 250 again. And like it's, you put it on and it's a little uncomfortable in your shoulders to start with, but you kind of get used to it. And then you walk a mile and then you realize, oh, this is heavy. This is what I was. And it's a little wild. Like people don't understand that. So I try to go for like the most basic things on the planet. Like change nothing, add vegetables. I had a guy in clinic. He was late 30s, maybe he was 40. All he did was add vegetables to dinner. He lost 40 pounds in a year. And like I try to get that through to people, but they refuse to believe it, or they say, well, I don't want to lose 40 pounds in a year. I want to lose 40 pounds in 2 months. It's like, well, that's not healthy. People just focus on losing weight. I'm like, no. I would prefer you aim for fat. And we can get into a whole discussion about the weight loss injections. The TLDR is if you have a ton of weight to lose and you have struggled for a long period of time, I'm all for it. If you want to lose 15 pounds, no. It's a lot. But I tell people all the time, you don't need to track your calories. And for some people, it's just, they think it's going to lead to an eating disorder. And that this is not what disordered eating is. Disordered eating is a royal problem. It's the most lethal of mental health diseases, way more than depression. So that, I would say it's a delicate balance, but it's really not. Because if you track your calories, understanding the math behind it, then it's not an eating disorder. You're just paying closer attention, right? You don't have to do that. Like I want people to start adding more vegetables, adding more fruits, adding more protein, because that's usually where people have a hard time, and they think, well, if I'm just adding all this stuff, I'm just adding more calories. It's like, yeah, theoretically, but you're only going to get so much food in you, right? If you think about having just a tub of mac and cheese and all the calories that are in that, but you start with, I don't know, a 6-ounce piece of steak and a side of your favorite vegetable, whatever that might be, and then you go back to the mac and cheese afterwards, you're going to eat less of the mac and cheese, right? 1-to-1, if you equate the volumes, the mac and cheese is going to be far more calorie dense, more calories per volume of food than the steak and vegetables. So you're going to consume fewer calories to begin with. It's like not that confusing of a concept. And personally, I like to see the math out, which is why I prefer to count my own calories after having been doing this for a long time. But I don't know, people, it seems weird to people, but I keep yelling at people to do this, and I don't know, it's just the way it starts. But I like to track my calories. I like to have the visual feedback. I like to be able to see how I'm progressing throughout the day, what the rest of my day will look like. I like to, and this doesn't happen much because I am a weak person, and will give into more cravings than I would like to. But I can often see at the end of the day, oh my God, I'm so hungry. Oh God, I'm so hungry. I didn't eat anything all day. And then I look and I'm like, no, you know what? I had 2,300 calories so far. Like, I'm not going to die. And it's usually that end of the day, nighttime thing where I just don't have the mental capacity to tell myself I'm good. And it could be partially that, I don't know, it's just like that late night craving because I'm bored eating and I don't know that I'm bored eating, or don't know that I don't have like a particular like work direction to go into, because I can get distracted with other stuff and forget that I'm hungry. But at the time, it's hard to realize that. For me and many others, my patients were like, I would tell them, if you are doing, here are the common pitfalls. It's like, man, how do you know all this stuff? I'm like, I did it. Like, it was me for 2 years. And then as I started changing, it was me after that, even until now. Like, just because I'm in better shape now doesn't mean I still have those same struggles that I had 10, 12 years ago. Now I just am better about, managing them. But I like counting my calories. I think too many people think it leads to an eating disorder. If you are obsessed with every grain of rice and every single calorie and every gram of protein and every gram of carbohydrate and every gram of fat, yeah, it becomes less of an eating disorder and more, obsessive compulsive personality disorder, which is different from obsessive compulsive disorder, because OCPD people actually enjoy that about themselves. People with obsessive compulsive disorder hate it about themselves. That's a big difference. People say, oh, I'm so OCD, I have to have all my things in a row. Yeah, but you like that about yourself. So you're not OCD, you're OCPD. Yeah. So I'm going to count my calories. I'm pretty sure I had a lot of food so far today. I don't feel overwhelmingly full because it's between like 7 and 10:15. But I'm going to get back to my elbowing of the table, I guess, and then back to my puck. And it just set itself for 15 seconds, which is not going to be nearly enough time. But I get to go, I mean, this thing was like super cheap on Amazon. I don't know how much exactly it was, but it was not a lot of money. But this is essentially what it looks like. When I have my phone on its stand and sideways, it goes into standby mode, which is great. It gives me like a very faint gray clock is what I set it to. So it's kind of like, it's just mostly black, so I can't even see it. And this light is like bright white light. I have like lights on me all the time because when I work, I like the lights like on me. And the only reason I closed this is because it's so bright outside that it would just like whitewash the camera and you couldn't see anything, which is not ideal. But I like tracking my calories. I like eating boring. I guess it's not even that boring. Huh. But I like feeling well all the time. I feel like crap if I, you know, eat like crap, oddly enough. Yeah. All right, I'm gonna get to work. I'll check in shortly. All right. Well, this hand has beef guts on it. Whenever I talk about like dieting and food choices and stuff like that, people think that it still has to be like 3 square meals a day. Everything has to be like perfectly portioned out, all this stuff, and like that's not at all the case, and it's not even how I do it. Like today's Sunday, and there's not much going on other than Kyria being asleep and letting the dogs in and out and working on a few of my other projects. So I kind of have. Are you allowed in the kitchen? I didn't think so. Go away. Go away. Scat. Scram. Millie always wants to be right up your butt because she's food aggressive and she thinks that my food is her food, and she is wrong. But people think that you have to have like 3 square meals a day and they all have to look exactly the same. And while that's okay, like to start, it's not necessary to like end. It's largely about like a combination of things, right? Like, what are your goals? Like, what do you actually want out of like whatever it is you're doing? Like what do you want out of the food that you eat, right? For me, at this stage, I want to make sure that I am maintaining around maintenance, maybe a very, very slight deficit. I don't want to be in a huge deficit because I would be afraid that that would hinder my ability to recover from my injury. But I also don't want to, just gain weight for the sake of gaining weight because I'm not really training. And if I'm not really training, then my weight is just going to be mostly fat, right? So I have that in mind like all day. That's like what I want to aim for. And, tracking my calories is a great way to stay kind of in that range, sort of. But it doesn't mean that you have to eat, exactly 3 square meals a day. It doesn't mean that you can't, have a snack here and there. It doesn't mean that you can or cannot do anything. And I think the thoughts that, if you just give up snacking, that's just going to do it. Like for some people, sure, right? Some people eat these tiny, tiny meals and think they're losing all sorts of weight because they're going to be in a calorie deficit because they're eating tiny, tiny meals. And then it's, another 1,500 calories a day worth of snacks. And then, what you thought was a 2,000 calorie deficit, that was a 400 calorie deficit, becomes, a 1,000 calorie surplus. Of course, that's an extreme example, but it's something I see often enough. It's a little late for this meal, but it's 20 of 1 right now, and I have my grill going. I feel like the sweet spot for me is around 200 grams of protein a day to keep me full, to keep me, as strong as I can be when I can't really push my strength training because of my leg. I feel like I've lost some muscle and my weight's gone down, which is good, but, I feel like a lot of that is muscle because I haven't been able to train the way I've wanted to over the last 6 weeks, and it's going to be a number of weeks until months maybe before I can start training again properly, but one day at a time. But the sweet spot for me is about 1.5 pounds of meat for lunch and dinner, or over the course of lunch and dinner, on top of whatever it is I have for breakfast, and if I do have a snack in between. That usually gets me to around 200 calories for the day. A quick rule of thumb is 1 pound of lean meat is about 100 grams of protein. And a lot of people talk about not being able to absorb more than 30 grams of sitting. And it's like, no, that's not how it works. If your goal is strictly muscle growth, it is more efficient for muscle growth to spread your protein out over many meals. Once you get past 1.6 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight, the returns start to diminish for muscle growth, right? If you were somebody who's, let's say you're 100 kilograms and you're having 160 grams of protein a day, cool, that's right where that is. If you had 200 grams of protein a day, you're still going to get more benefit, but the change from 160 to 200 is a lot smaller than the change from 140 to 160, even though it's a 40 gram difference. Your body will use the protein for other things. Like your body needs protein for things that are not just muscle gain, just hypertrophy, right? You'll use it. And different people will use different amounts for different things, right? Some people who are trained and who really need it and who are really trying to recover, it's probably closer to 50 per sitting. And per sitting, I mean like over the course of 2 hours, hour and a half, 2 hours, depending on, again, who you are. But the thought that you can't just have 100 grams and be okay, it's wrong. Sure, it's less efficient as far as muscle growth goes, but it's like not bad. And that's something that kind of bothers me about the psychos on social media. Like they think everything is just evil. It's like, no, there's like varying levels to efficiency with this stuff. And, you know, I used to have a pound of meat for lunch and a pound of meat for dinner. And that was great. Until I realized that like, I really don't need that much meat, especially if I'm having some protein throughout the course of the day, just in general. I'm sorry for speaking softly. Kiri's over there sleeping. And it's kind of echoey in here. But this is simple for me. You know, the Publix up the road has 90% lean ground beef on sale sometimes. So I kind of buy all of it. It's $5.50 a pound, which is for 90% stuff is pretty inexpensive compared to the 94 to 96% stuff that gets up near like $10 a pound, which is insane. You know, I'm waiting for the people who are like, oh, you can afford it, you're a doctor. It's like, yeah, but I don't know. If you see a $5 bill on the ground, like, how much money do you have to make before it's like, I'm not going to pick it up, you know? It's like, money will never be that to me. I don't, skimp out, of course. This is 90% lean ground sirloin. It's pretty good. It's not the best out there for whoever calls whatever the best, but it's just, it's an option for me right now because I've spent the last decade plus understanding a lot of this stuff. And it seems to work. So it'll be 3/4 of a pound now and 3/4 of a pound, I don't know, probably 5 or 6 hours from now. And that'll be my meat for the day. There's a big giant bowl of salad in there that I'll probably have for dinner too. That'll keep me full. And I think I put in all of the meat that I'm gonna have today, which is, I've made 4 patties and then have just 4 balls. There you go. I mean, it's kind of a lot for most people anyway. But most people aren't 210 pounds. And most people don't have type 1 diabetes. And, most people haven't figured out that this kind of a thing works for them. And that's fine. You don't have to do what I do at all. I had one woman I took care of when I was in Nashville who was 63 years old, like wanted to know exactly what I did and wanted to do exactly what I do. And I just and this was after 2 or 3 visits of, me trying to explain these basics to her. And she was just not having it. Didn't want to give up having way too much wine every night. And I was just cut it down a little bit. It's no, I'm not gonna do that, okay. Maybe limit some fried food. No, I'm not gonna do that either. Okay. just like wanted to talk and just didn't want the help. Wanted really somebody to tell her that there was something wrong with her, like medically, but there wasn't. And I told her, like, I'm not gonna have you write down exactly what I do so you can copy it. Like, we are very different people. Like, you're in your early 60s. I'm in my, at the time I was in my, well, I guess I still am, my mid 30s. And like, we have different like capabilities, we have different interests. And to not honor those is, I think, wrong. And I wish people understood that instead of just going and copying their favorite influencer, which sometimes is reasonable, especially if you have like things in common, right? You know, if you're a young man and wanting to come up, and you know, you find a natural bodybuilder who's 3 or 4 years older than you are, and you want to kind of copy that, that's a way to go, fine. But like, I'm not gonna sit here and copy Chris Bumstead, right? We're different people. I'm not gonna, you know, I'm not going for my, you know, 6th Mr. Olympia in a row. You know, I'm not interested in taking performance enhancing drugs. Like, I don't want to do that. I'm also not terribly interested in a bodybuilding show. But my diet, most people think, is boring, and like, I get it. But I think I saw something from Chris Pratt not that long ago talking about when he was overweight. He was like, you know, I felt great while I was eating, and then I just felt like crap afterwards, like in between meals. And then he said when he switched, it's like, yeah, the food's kind of boring, but I feel outstanding in between. And I'm like, yeah, that's a great way to put it, because, yeah, I mean, a chocolate cake is better than ground beef. Not many people are going to argue that. But the way you feel after, I don't know, a half pound of meat, for example, and some vegetables and an apple, versus how you feel after eating a chocolate cake, those are different feelings. So for me, this has been worth it. All right, let's go cook this. I'm getting hungry. It's starting to get late. It's a little after 8 o'clock. And for many of you, it's not late, but for me, it's late. I'll be asleep within the hour. But I have been hungry for the last probably hour and a half. And usually it just kind of goes away. I had the rest of that ground beef and a big giant bowl of salad. And yeah, I'm still, you know, on the side of hunger. And one thing I forget who I got this from. I think I got it from, it's not me, it's somebody else. I don't remember who I got it from, but if you're willing to eat something that is more or less generally undesirable, then you're probably hungry. But if you are only willing to eat, like, I don't know, a bag of chips or something, then you're maybe not hungry, maybe just kind of like bored or something. But one thing that has saved me over a long period of time, recently anyway, is having reasonable choices right at hand. And one of those Kyrie bought but didn't like them were these Quest chips. Okay, one bag is 140 calories, 5 grams of fat, 5 grams of carbs, and 19 grams of protein. Doritos are better, but these are reasonable. Especially considering where the hell did I put it? Oh. I grilled some chicken, and I'm going to also have a big slice of chicken breast. It's not actually as thick as like a normal chicken breast. I like tenderized it and pounded it out, but I'm gonna eat that too. Because I can, and because I know I'm hungry. Like I said, usually if I have hunger, craving, it usually goes away as I'm doing stuff, and I've been kind of doing stuff for the last hour, like in a pretty focused manner, and eating has always been in the back of my mind since then. And I know in a calorie deficit you're going to be hungry sometimes, but this certainly isn't going to break the caloric bank, and there's no point in being miserable, right? So if I take care of this now at 8:14, then I am less likely to go crazy at 9:14. But if I kept pushing it off, then whatever is left of my cognitive capacity would have just bowed out to more primal urges to eat anything. So I'm gonna eat this and relax for the first time today. It's been a long day. Hopefully you got some value out of this video, because only crazy people talk to the camera, but nobody around. Maybe I'm a crazy person, who knows? Yep. Kind of crazy, that's okay. See you next one. I don't remember how I seasoned that, but it's not bad. But I will have to do it differently next time.